It's all about humanity. About humanity. It's all about humanity. About humanity. It's all about humanity. It's all about humanity. About humanity. It's all about humanity. About humanity. It's all about humanity.
Hello, model citizens. Hello, model citizens. Welcome to Humanity Junction. Tonight on Trains and Tech, we're going to talk a little bit about wiring and a little bit about operations. The operations we're going to talk about is the layouts that I went and visited during the NER convention. I've got some photos to show, as well as I reached out to two different layout owners to get their thoughts on having newbies over to do some operations, and I thought I would share with you their thoughts and opinions and all of that good stuff. I will not be using a soldering iron tonight. That's not the wiring conversation is more going to be theoretical. Let's say I'll show you what I've been up to, where I'm at. There is a lot of wiring to do. That is just, you'd think there's not that much space behind me, but there just seems to be a lot of things to wire. I don't really understand why that is the way it is, but that is the way it is. So there. I am getting on a plane tomorrow morning, heading off to Atlanta for a couple of days. So I'm a little bit in the mindset of I'm about to go get in a metal tube and fly through the air. I'm also prepping for my first time at a Civil War based layout that I'm going to get to operate on Saturday when I get back. So I fly back late Friday night, get right back on, and head back down there as well. Rayron, I don't know, did you just re-up? It says member for 24 months, pro model citizen. Thank you for joining the memberships that I have. Much appreciate it. Dennis, I gotta admit, can you guys hear the baby crying? There's a baby crying. I gotta admit, yes, I am in this for the wiring. I'm having a lot of fun doing it. I got sidetracked for a little while doing some programming, but now I'm done with that programming, and I just need to get to it. I also need to talk to Ron up at New Haven Rails. We talked about possibly doing an ops weekend or an ops day up there, up at his layout and up at Chris Adams' layout. I got to follow up with him as well. It's interesting. It sounds like fun. I'm very curious. He operates with pocket watches, so he recommended that we get a vest to put the pocket watch in. The couplers are all done. I forget what it's called right now, but it's a you basically use tweezers, and they hook into other things. So there's, I guess, like two eyes on either the vehicles, and then there's a rod between them. So you use the tweezers and you pull the rod off and you leave it next to the track. Apparently they were so heavy they would just leave them wherever they were. Uh, Costumes are encouraged, Civil War era stuff. So I don't know. It should be interesting. I am delaying for a tiny bit because I was hoping that, that's not what I wanted to show you. I've got some stuff here on the bench that somebody sent me, and I was hoping to show it off, but I'm kind of waiting until they get here. Here we go. We got some answers. Spring wound watches, link and pin couplers. So Andy is actually the one that initially introduced me to the gentleman whose place we are going to. I thought this was hilarious. If you were on last week's Wednesday night Talking Trains over at TSG Multimedia, Sydney, who we refer to as the secret producer, referred to model railroading operations as LARPing with trains. If you don't know, LARPing stands for live action role play. It's typically, or at least where I typically see it, is more in like the armor, fighting with swords and that kind of stuff. But yeah, I don't know. Did I see the goal? Oh yes, yeah, they do have the train meet over at Northlands. That is true. They definitely do. Let's jump in, and if the mystery guest that gave me these items shows up, we'll jump back into that. But while we're waiting, are you doing this around Halloween? Great reason to dress up. He does this all the time. This is my first time there, but he does the Civil War ops. It's apparently a newer based layout, so he's still figuring some stuff out, but he really wants to try and, put you in that time period as well. Jub, I am going to Amherst. My next big, I guess, model railroad trip outside of just some op sessions is going to be up to Springfield at the end of January. I've got my hotel room. I've got the Amtrak ticket. The only thing I haven't bought is the tickets to get into the show, but I will definitely be doing that as well. I do hope to. I hope to do the layout justice. Andy Estep has shown me some photos from when he has. Oh, I'm hiding that. Cameron, that's stuff that was sent to me that we're gonna show off when the person that sent it arrives tonight. Andy Estep has shown me some photos, and it is just a gorgeous layout. I have a layout tour coming out on Thursday at 8:30 a.m. and it's a layout that I took a video of during the Northeast Region convention. It was one of the layouts that I operated on, and I don't know I don't know what I think about it. So if you guys can watch the video, let me know if you like the idea of the video. So yeah, it's yeah, don't wear a Confederate outfit. That's actually a great question. I don't know where the layout is based. So I'm not sure. Do you also talk like John Wayne or Clint Eastwood epic way of operating? Are you going to pull out that Staten, Station, Pilgrim, or Whistle Dixie? I don't know the answer to that. Dennis, we both know that's too far of a reach for Heath. Yeah, me as John Wayne or Clint Eastwood is a huge, huge stretch. One of the layouts I went to during the NER convention, and it was the first layout that I got to operate on. No, that's a lie. The first layout that I got to operate on, I didn't take any pictures, I don't think. I don't think I have any pictures in here. This was the second layout I got to operate on. This is a layout that has expanded multiple times, and it's kind of like when he gets bored, he just adds another section on to the layout. So it was kind of a really interesting layout to get to. So the railroad we're going to is the WARR. So the war. I don't know. I guess RR is railroad. If it was AW the other way around, it could be Allegheny and Western, but it's WA. So I'm not sure what that means. But anyway, so Howard Dyer's layout, really nice layout in his basement. It was a lot of fun just to kind of walk around his layout and see all of the intricate details. His layout was called the Island Central Railroad. So this is a custom deckled Island Central Railroad car. I actually got to switch this area as a part of the ops day, and it was kind of fun. You're, kind of switching on a street running area. Western Atlantic. So where is the Western Atlantic? So the Atlantic Ocean is on the East Coast. So the Western Atlantic, you think you would be in like the UK, but it's Civil War era, so I assume it's in the US. I don't know. That's a neat overhead crane. Yeah, that is a cool little overhead crane. I took a lot of pictures at Howard's. You can see, I like, one of the things that was really kind of neat is you can see the background fading right into the foreground. And I think that is, the East Coast of America is the Western Atlantic. There you go. Shows you what I know. I really like the way the background kind of fades into the foreground. It was some really nice transitions that he had. A lot of little details. You can see the people hanging out here. Well, maybe you can see the people depending on the size of your screen. But lots of little people hanging out, lots of signs. You see a little train running here in the background. So it was a neat little layout. My first train that I ran, I started in Jamaica Station, went around the layout. It's one level, but it's one deck, but it's multiple levels. So like this is an upper level on the same deck. But yeah, like, I mean, look at all the people in this one little scene here is pretty neat. Take a look, there'll be some buildings called Dwire along the way, which is his last name, which I thought is kind of fun as well. Bill from the Ozark in Midland. If you don't know Bill, go check out his channel. He does a bunch of O-scale stuff, and he's got a beautiful backyard. Thank you so much, Bill, for coming. Safe journey to Atlanta. I am absolutely planning on doing that 150%. Let me see if I can figure this out while I am, there we go. That should work, maybe, hopefully. But yeah, I walked around actually before we operated and just kept taking all these pictures, trying to get kind of down at track level, kind of getting to, experience the layout from that lower perspective. This is actually the first train I ran, is the one coming out of the Dunton Yard lead, that New York Central train right there. Here you've got a Long Island locomotive on the right side, but just really, all these little people and all these little details. If only we knew somebody that sold like little miniature stuff that you could, go and purchase some of these types of items for around the layout. This was kind of a fun little hole. You had this hole in the layout where it wasn't well, it's a subway scene back there, but he actually has a freight train parked in there as well. What is the room size? Oh, of course you're going to ask me that. Let me see what I can find. If you go to Island Ops 2023 and you go to their website and you go to the layouts section, which is what I am going to right now, and you look at the layout. So this is the Island Central, and it doesn't tell me how big it is. Let's see, does it say here? HO scale room size 15 feet by 29 feet. So he's got the layout drawing on the Island Ops thing. Yeah, Bernard, if only someone should start a channel on or start a channel. Someone should start a little company where they print little things that you can buy. But yeah, let's keep going through here. Nice bridge. Some just, again, nice little details. Um, I don't. It was fun to operate on. Oh, this was, yeah, David. I completely understand. Um, he had a subway. So he had this elevated track with the subway on it, and it was on basically a switch where he could flip it on and it would just kind of run back and forth on its own. Really kind of neat, just having these little moving details. He had some sound things that he would turn on, a bunch of different little animation things. In this picture, unfortunately, you cannot see it really well, but the water skier in the back left here, there's actually a shark swimming after her, and I mentioned to him that I really liked the shark afterwards, and he goes, you are the first person that has mentioned seeing that. So I don't know if nobody. I'm kind of surprised, but the detail in the water that he did, just really nice, nice things. And while the scenery doesn't make the layout necessarily any better to operate, it made it fun. Here it is, Dwire Machine Shop. So the gentleman's name who owns the layout and has been building it for probably 30 some years now, name this after him, after himself. Um, just, I don't know. I was really into all the details. So this is the gentleman here in the center, facing me at this time. On the left is Dave Inslee. On the right is Gordy Robinson. If you guys don't know, Gordon Robinson's the president of the NMRA. This is his dispatchers panel, which I thought was kind of fun. Like, here I am trying to like program all this stuff in, and I was spending so much time doing programming at this point, and then to show up and just see such a simple setup for the dispatching was kind of nice to see. So that was one layout, and to completely counter all of the photos that I just showed, this next layout, so that the first layout was basically 100% scenic. Whereas this layout, let's see what if he gives a percentage here or not. Um, I guess it's maybe 20-30% scenic. Dave Barza is an LCC guy. He is also a his day job is in railroad signaling, as in like the real railroad signaling stuff. His layout, he has put a lot of time into the layout being as prototypically signaled and operated as possible. So this is the New York and Atlantic, which is a current day real existing railroad on Long Island. It stretches basically from, if you're heading down into the city, when you pass through Oak Point, the next yard that you get to is Fremont Yard. Once you get into Fremont Yard, that's basically the New York and Atlantic territory, and that extends all the way out to the end of the island. One of the operators on Dave's layout is actually a New York and Atlantic employee. So at the end of the op sessions, they will sit down and have conversations about like specific signaling thing, about specific trains that they are actually running on the layout. So this area right here is, yeah, there you go. The New York and Atlantic runs freight on the Long Island Railroad's track. The Long Island Railroad has priority, and he runs passenger trains. If you want, I don't think, he doesn't have a map posted of his layout, I don't believe, Dennis. But this is Jamaica Station, passenger trains. So he runs passenger trains, and then on the off hours, so he uses a fast clock. On the off hours, he then runs the freight trains, and the freight trains have to get out of the way of the passenger trains. And I didn't take very many pictures of this layout, but just to kind of get an idea, you can see here on the right, it's 3 levels. So it's quite a long railroad. Here's Gordy Robinson again, staring at, I believe, no, this is the Pine Air side. I'm not sure what he's staring at. Oh no, Pine Air's behind him. I don't know what he's staring at, but he's staring at something. The gentleman in the foreground is actually the guy that works at the New York and Atlantic. It is very long and narrow, and ironically, no matter how many operators Dave has operating on his layout, and I was actually there this past weekend, no matter how many operators he has, everyone seems to end up standing in the same place. So it's kind of funny the way that works out. And just to prove that, yes, I was there, and yes, they do actually let me touch a throttle and run a train. And I screwed up so big during this op session. I was supposed to pull out 12 empty coal hoppers, and I forget how many of something else. Instead, good job at photoshopping. There you go. I was always supposed to pull out like, let's say a 20 car train. I ended up pulling out like a 30 car train, and I couldn't get up the helix without pushing the train along because I had too many cars. And then there was just not enough room to switch. So I completely screwed up. The way Dave operates his layout is he uses car cards, but he also creates switch lists for everybody. So you can either basically operate off of the car cards or off of the switch lists. Sometimes you should probably compare the two. What I ended up not doing is I didn't compare the two. So I ended up just taking all of the car cards and heading out. I could be wrong. They might not be coal cars, but I thought they were. It might have been, it's probably something else. These are actually the cars in the foreground. What's in these cars here? That's not coal, is it? It's something. I don't know. I'm terrible at the history stuff, but this is Dave's dispatcher panel. Oh, they could have been ballast cars. They very well could have been. I don't know. Go back. They weren't coal cars. They were something else. Any way you look at it, I screwed up. That's the takeaway from this. Heath screwed up. This is one of his dispatcher panels. He doesn't have... The New York and Atlantic doesn't have a single dispatcher. The New York and Atlantic has towers, two separate towers in this case. They're moving a lot of the tower stuff all to one central location, but in the time that he operates the railroad, there are two towers. So this is Divide Tower, and the other tower is J Tower, which is Jamaica Tower. This is not CATS. As I mentioned, Dave Barza is by day a signal person. He has done a huge amount of custom programming to make this look like the actual dispatcher's panel for the New York and Atlantic. So this is all JMRI, all custom programmed. These empty white boxes here, you can click on the box, put in the locomotive information, and as the train moves from one block to the next, it will automatically take that train information and move it from one block to the next. Here you can see on the bottom right, it says, what does it say? Basically, this is dark territory. So he has, as is prototypical with the New York and Atlantic, there are certain areas that are all basically CTC controlled as far as I understand it. There are some areas that are completely dark, and there are other areas that are called YA. No, not YA. Are called, I don't remember what they are, but they're signals that you need to get a track warrant to be able to pass through, and you need to OS along the way or per your track warrant, what your track warrant tells you. So if you learn to operate on this railroad, you will learn essentially 3 different signaling, track operation, whatever setups. Andy, remind me. I'll try and remind you as well. He's always looking for people that are willing to travel. He lives way on the end of Long Island. It is a trek, but I will let you know next time he does an op session. But yeah, so 3 different types of signaling on the same layout, but it's all prototypical. Here is J Tower. So this is still Divide Tower. This is the other computer, which is J Tower with Jamaica Station. Here is the West Side Yard. The West Side Yard, if people remember, was actually a yard that I was thinking of modeling on my layout. Didn't end up doing it. The West Side Yards are now known as Hudson Yards. And so basically this is the Long Island trains in Hudson Yards. You pull out of there, go through Jamaica Station, head out into Long Island. All of this custom programmed so you can set the routes. Everything is, you probably typed that as I was saying it. The West Side Yard is, the West Side Yard is the West Side Yard of Manhattan, which is now called Hudson Yard. Then you go through Jamaica. One of the other things that I'm inspired by on Dave's layout is instead of physical switches and physical wires and all that kind of stuff, all of his local switching control is done on tablets. His whole layout can either be controlled via the dispatcher, or he's got certain areas where you might be able to get local control. So this is just an example of one of those local control areas. And again, all custom programs. The next layout that I went to, and this is actually the layout that, there's only, I think, 3 photos, but this is the layout of the layout tour-ish thing that I am putting out on Thursday morning. So if you want to see more about this layout, check out the video Thursday morning. This is a layout. It's 5,600 square feet. This layout, a lot of this layout is dual deck. The first picture you showed, the layouts look like it was for Model Railroader. It was. Howard Dwire was in Model Railroader in 2012, I think, something like that. I'm probably screwing that up, but yes, it was the picture from that. But yeah, so Allegheny and Western is also a dispatch layout. The dispatcher for this layout was all custom programmed by a gentleman named Vic, who is also by day a signalman. This is out on Long Island, in Hicksville, Long Island. I've been to this layout a couple times. This layout is a lot of fun to run. The area of this layout that I really love running is the yard. And I am not the yard master. Definitely, I don't try and get that job. But I try and get one of the jobs that's kind of around the yard area. So I've worked the hump yard. I've been what they call the trim, which is the guy that takes the trains from the yard to the hump and from the hump back into the yard. This was the safety meeting. Jim Schweitzer is the gentleman kind of in the top left in the back, who's basically acts as their train master for their big club events. This railroad takes, I think, about 40 people to operate every piece and part of this railroad. This gentleman here in the front is Phil Monat. He is the gentleman that gave me my start in operations. He took a chance, allowed me to come over to his layout. They bring 2 people that are experienced to run this layout. One of them is Phil, who runs the Allentown yard. The other person is the dispatcher, and everybody else there pretty much just kind of does things. So yeah, Maybrick, New York is similar to May, Oklahoma, but a little bit different. But yeah, essentially, if Allentown yard works, the rest of the layout can kind of follow along. But if Allentown yard falls apart, this layout would just come to a complete halt. So Phil doesn't actually operate any trains. He is he's just the yard master, so he doesn't control any locomotives or anything. The gentleman that's in the very back of this picture was the hostler for that day. So anytime we needed a locomotive, Phil would say, hey, you know, come over here, put a locomotive on this cut of cars. I would grab the caboose. He would call the dispatcher. They would send a road crew over. The road crew would jump into the train and take it off to whatever destination around the layout it's going. Here's a terrible picture of me, but I'm wearing my Split Rock shirt, supporting Mr. Split Rock himself. I don't know why my eyes are closed, but my eyes are closed. And you can see they actually let me touch things. I do actually have a throttle in my hand, and I am probably cutting away this locomotive or something. I may have just hooked up this caboose, or maybe I'm about to pick that caboose up. I'm not really sure, but really long. This picture doesn't quite show how long this is, but this whole yard to the left of where I'm standing is the hump yard. So it's this yard plus the hump yard long. It takes up, you know, the entire side of the building. This is a fun layout to operate on, but it's hard to get a full contingent of people. So times like Island Ops or this NER convention is really fun because they will have 40 people come and operate this layout, and it's just a really, really incredible opportunity. The next layout I got to operate on was Niccolo Plautus. Very different style of layout. It's different. I don't know how to explain the difference necessarily. Definitely not as green as the other layouts, but the scenery is very incredible as it is. Oh, NPSF, so Santa Fe. A lot of this is based in that area, so a lot of the scenery is very Santa Fe based. This was a cool little junkyard. One of the jobs that I had, we pulled that car out of that junkyard, replaced it with another car. But you can see here's the excursion train. They run this little, this is the only steam locomotive on the railroad. You pull it out, you hitch up to this excursion train, you take the excursion train up the hill to, I forget what the name of the town is. You then run around the passenger train, hitch back up, pull yourself back down to this little area. So it's a fun little ops opportunity there. But you can see you can see that Southwest tan color, or whatever you want to call that, sand color. More very different scenery that he's got here. A big ethanol plant he has. That was one of the ops jobs. Here's just a nice little bridge going over a river. A lot of the scenery was this. Well, all of the scenery was really this style of scenery. You can kind of make out the upper deck here. This was, I believe, a double deck layout for most of it. Kind of a Nolix situation. So you go from one deck to the other by going around the room. Again, a little accident scene here. These, I think, looked like the ECC vehicles. They had all the LEDs and everything flashing and lighting up. He had these switch panels that were really pretty cool to provide power to the track and to switch the turnouts. You would turn this little rotary dial here, and whichever track you turn the rotary dial to, your turnouts would align themselves and the track that you needed to have power. Is that what they call it? Western style? I don't know. I'm such a Northeast guy. What do I know? But yeah, so that was a neat little switch panel that he had for most of his yards, and that kind of style of switch panel. Another layout where I took a lot of pictures. I took this picture because I was wondering if I was insane, because I was adding that sort of quick connect, disconnect for all of my switches as well. And I wasn't sure if I was crazy doing it, and I was looking under people's layouts while I was at these op sessions, and I saw that he had these connectors as well, and it's I felt justified in what I was doing. I don't understand how this works, but those rotary dials connect up to this little matrix thing here, and you can kind of see there's wires going in one direction, and then there's wires above it going in the other direction, and there's, looks like, diodes going between them. I don't understand this, but when you flip those switches, you were doing something to that. Here's the switch. So when you move this switch around, something was happening with all those wires. So Mike says that's a diode matrix. I don't know how one works. If you want to know how one works, probably go to my Discord and maybe Mike will explain to us how it works in the Discord later, because I'm curious. Yeah, I know I'm not supposed to, but I couldn't not look underneath. I couldn't not look. General Mills, because everybody needs a General Mills. Again, me poking around underneath. I was just curious to see his wiring. On the left there are his track, detection, the BD20 style. They're not BD20s, but they're that style of track detection. You can see on the bottom right, those red lights down there. Those are different power districts and stuff like that. So, no, we do not want to see Heath solder that. He has a team of guys that have helped him build this layout. He did not build this on his own. He did have a lot of guys that supported the build of this, and it really shows. This was, too, by far the cleanest layout I have ever seen. He had carpet on the floors, and it was very, very clean. There was not... You guys are kind of saying, like, don't look behind the curtain. There were actually no curtains because there was almost nothing stored under the layout. I don't know where he stores stuff, but wasn't under the layout. One of the trains I got to run was this Amtrak train in the background, because Amtrak trains apparently don't just run on the Northeast Quarter. They also run all over the country. The way they operate this layout is on the right, they've got a dispatcher's panel. I think this might have... No, this is JMRI. Dispatcher's panel, JMRI. On the left, they're using Operations Pro to run the operations on the layout. So when a new train is going to run, they actually print out the train from JMRI right there during the session, and they hand it out to you, at the door. You hand you your paperwork, and you run off and operate your train. Again, proving that I was given a throttle and allowed to touch things. This is me doing that switching job that I was talking about with the junkyard. These gondolas, one of them, I think that last one is actually the one we pulled out of the junkyard that I took a picture of earlier. Heath is not angry. Don Iris was my conductor. Don Iris was telling me what to do, and I was just making sure that I didn't break anything. I thought this was funny. You've all seen it on Facebook, but I just have to bring it up because after operating on all these people's layouts, how could you not want to buy a bigger house? Baby, do you remember the money we saved to buy a house? And he uncovers her eyes, and it's a huge layout in the basement. The next slide I'm going to get to, we're going to talk about, or I'm going to go through some things that two layout owners said about having new people come and operate on the layout. So I'm going to say thank you first to everybody, and then we're going to get the perspective. So I mentioned earlier, I screwed up. I've messed up. I've derailed trains. I've run signals. If you can do it wrong, I've done it wrong. So I basically asked two layout owners, I said, hey, how do you feel about having people like me over at your layout, breaking stuff? So I'm going to play my thank you. 52 seconds later, I'm going to go through and we're going to find out what other people think about me operating on their layout.
It's all about humanity. It's all about humanity.
So I don't know if you guys planned this or not, or maybe my eyes were deceiving me, but I thought I saw two different people say, so you're saying you could work for Union Pacific. I definitely could. But let's the two people I got advice from are two layout owners of layouts that I have operated on and that I have screwed up on. I particularly wanted their opinions just because they kind of know how new of an operator I am, and I thought it would just be good to get that perspective. We do have people here in chat that have their own layouts, who have people over at their layouts as well, who probably have opinions on this subject as well. There are two layout owners. The first one, the title all says from one layout owner's perspective. When we get to the other layout owner, it says another layout owner's perspective. So the first layout owner said, it's easy, don't break stuff, respect the dungeon. So we're gonna break that down. Don't break stuff, respect the dungeon. Don't break stuff. Now, he knows things break, right? So he's not saying like if something like accidentally breaks. He's just saying like don't intentionally break stuff, right? So if you suspect something's broken, bring it to my attention. Do not make flat wheels on my loco by continuing to drag it around inoperable in a consist after you've noticed something is wrong. My guess is that that has happened to him. Understanding that accidents happen. If you mess up, fess up. If you try to fix it so I won't know, I'll find out anyway and be pissed at you. Very honest response. But yeah. Respect the dungeon comes down to this. The owner has set up a particular scenario based on their vision. Like in Dungeons and Dragons, he set up an environment in which everyone comes to play their role. Don't cheat or otherwise do what you want because your vision doesn't line up 100% with the owner's. Play the game using the rules provided. Respect the Dungeon was born one day when a handful of us watched someone run their train 45 minutes early on a timetable and train order layout because he wanted more, or because they wanted more handle time, and if they left on time, the operations session was gonna end. I'll argue that Joey, the pictures you've shared are amazing. I agree, and Cameron said he agrees. Oh, we're talking about Joey. Joey's photos of his layout are stunning. If you want to see them, go follow him. He's got some great videos out there. He just started making his own laser cut kits. Some of the stuff I've never seen before. That's the last video that Joey posted on his channel. Don't believe a word Joey says when he says he has nothing interesting to show. So this is a good point too. Ask whether it's okay for you to re-rail any derailments. I'm not mad at operators with derailments, and I allow operators to re-rail their trains. I just want to know about it so I can fix the issue. Everybody has pretty much said that the whole way through, is let me know so I can fix the issue. Again, this is the same person that said the other stuff. I will tolerate any number of mistakes if the operator is complying with the above. My scenario is complicated and relies on a rather obscure set of rules which are not well known. I don't expect someone who operates a few times a month to have the mastery of the layout location, as I don't myself. Just give it a good old earnest college try and I'm quite happy. When I see similar mistakes happening over and over, I don't blame the team, I blame the coach, me, the layout owner. Another local layout owner has a good take on it, which is don't blame your guests if they can't understand the vision you have for operations. Put your big boy pants on and own that you could probably do a better job communicating the way you would like things to run. So the layout owner taking responsibility for new people that might not understand stuff. So back to the first guy saying, reflecting on what the other guy said was, I agree completely with this. I enjoy coming up with paperwork, rules, timetables, etc., but that's not everyone's jam. It's the responsibility of the host to communicate the scenario as best as they can to their guests. Guests must be clear. This is another really good one. What did THG say? The only rule you need if you go to op sessions, don't be a dick. Agreed, 100%. Guests must be clear about their experience level when attending sessions, and they must read all instructions and the layout primer so they have a clue what is going on. Oh, this is, oh, sorry. I'm on to the next one and I forgot. Sorry. Let's go back to the beginning. Operations does not happen in a vacuum. We build the layout so others can come and run it. Can't realize our vision without guest operators. As hosts, it is always nice to get more and new people. Teaching and supporting the growing of the hobby is one of the things we must do. If you don't know what that means, maybe stay home. If you don't know what means, maybe stay home. I don't know what you're referring to. If your ego is bigger than the door to the other person's layout room, don't enter it. Yeah, I mean, you got to be somewhat humble. Almost every layout owner has kind of discussed they'd rather have somebody that doesn't know what they're doing than someone that thinks they know everything. Simple paperwork is essential. Agreed. And the first person that was talking about acknowledges that their layout is difficult to operate on, and knows that and is working on making his paperwork as simple and easy as possible. Oh, yes, exactly. If you don't know what don't be a dick means, stay home because you're probably a dick. So we already said this, but guests must be clear about their experience level when attending sessions, and they must read all instructions in the layout primer. I will admit, and probably a lot of operators will admit, they don't all read all of the instructions and the layout primer. This layout owner in particular has a lot of momentum on his road locomotives. If you bring your locomotive on the dial down to 0 and you don't hit the brake button, it will keep running. He mentions it about 20 times in his operations primer, but it's one of those things that he constantly has to remind people, because if you're new, you will bring your road locomotive to 0 and that thing will keep going and going and going. Yeah, so both of these layout owners who gave this stuff, they are really into the prototypical side of things, and their operations primers are not the size of an index card. But I will say they were both very, very interesting comments. This is a great one, and this actually came up last week. TSG Multimedia, talking trains, we were talking operations. Another pro tip for ops is slow down and enjoy yourself. Some people will start rushing, especially near the end of a session, because they feel like they have to finish the job. And that's not the way it works in reality. I mean, in reality, when the time runs out, the time runs out. Don't start taking shortcuts. Don't start, pushing cars around with your fingers just to get it done, sooner. Slow down. Yeah, layout primer, ops primer, sounds like a manual. No need to read those. Yeah. Although in some cases they're really good. They're really interesting. The information that these two in particular have provided, you should read like the first page or two, but the other 20 is just stuff to make you a better operator at the end of the day. But yeah. Dennis says what should be included in a layout primer. My recommendation: go online, find people with layouts like John Parker, like go to the Island Ops and find these people's websites. A lot of them will post their operations primers on their websites, so you can go to their websites and download them and see all that stuff. If you want, I can do a stream on it. I have downloaded several operations primers, and Split Rock wants a short one. I think your operations primer can be a little bit longer, but you better make your safety discussion uh, um, as short as possible, not as long. Yes, 20 pages. Again, on the ones that are 20 pages, like one guy has all of the rules that are relevant on his railroad. You don't need to read all the rules to know how to operate on his layout. But if you read all of the rules, you will learn things about about operations and about model railroad operations. The other guy, a lot of the stuff that he does is he talks about like what trains you might run and various things like that. So, yeah, I mean, there's various different lengths and aspects to operations primers. Some guys just have a map of their layout. Some guys, will have the function buttons for their throttles. A lot of different things. Layout specific. So this is what this specific operator wants to know if you're coming over to operate on his layout. You must tell me if you're colorblind. His layout is all signaled. There is a single LED that is either red, yellow, or green. If you can't see the color of that single LED, it's going to be very, very hard to operate on his layout. You must understand or you'll learn quickly the idea of signals and occupancy, specifically OS sections and what you can and cannot do without the dispatcher's knowledge or signal indication, aka don't be Heath and run through red signals. It's not a good thing to do. You will find out very quickly why you shouldn't run through other people's signals. Realize that someone has spent a lot of time, money, and effort to create the layout, story, and scenario you're going to enjoy. So the least you can do is be respectful and grateful for the chance. Absolutely, absolutely agree. All right, so what's discussed at the safety talk depends on where you go. 99% of the time, the safety talk is the door you came in. If there's an emergency, that's the door you go out of. There is no other door. Go to that door. And the bathroom is over here. Outside of that, safety talks can kind of vary. Some people will go into, other sort of things about their railroad. Some layout owners will have a rule of the day, right? Tony Custer's thing is that he will present a rule of the day. The idea being is every time you operate on the layout, you'll learn a new rule. It kind of depends. Depends. I agree with this, Mike. One of the layouts I showed barely had any scenery. Other ones had a lot of it. If you're building your layout for operations, just get people over and Di should have figured that out. Yeah, no, it's all good. It's all good. The rest of it's pretty much learn as you go. In terms of damaging equipment, that has almost never happened on my layout that I can think of. Of course, I'm going to be the guy to prove that wrong, but I know people damage the layout inadvertently. I'm always fixing details that have been broken, hit, knocked off, missing, but that's part of the wear and tear of operations. The thing isn't static like a museum diorama. So layout owners know you're going to go over, things happen. as long as, again, going back to an earlier statement, don't be a dick, be respectful. While running the OpSig, we did have an incident when a guest ran a new, beautiful, full passenger train off the back of the staging track onto the floor. Apparently, the guy was a jerk and didn't listen, but then the host also invited guests over without being prepared for something like that. For example, never leave track work exposed to something like that happening. If you have a track and it's possible for you to run a train off the end, make sure you've got a bumper on the end of the track that is designed that will stop that train. He says, I've also heard a very rare occasion of something going missing. You've heard us talk about things going missing. But all that said, as said, extremely rare and should not take away from the fun of having new folks. Now, this was an interesting part of the conversation. I'm going to end in about 2 minutes, so if you guys can just hang on for 2 minutes, we'll all go over to the Second Section podcast and enjoy their podcast. But I think what he says in this last slide is worth waiting around for, so give me like 2 more minutes and we'll get through this. Now, there is a case to be made for folks who just don't get it and don't grasp the concept of operations. I have 1 or 2 of those. Nothing you can do is going to help them become better at operations. It can be frustrating to the host, especially if the layout is complex like mine and requires somebody to think ahead and plan ahead. Give them a job where they cannot upset the session too much if possible. But even then, that can be overcome or tolerated as long as the lack of ability doesn't come with an asshole personality. I know of one of the people that he's talking about. One of the gentlemen he's talking about has contributed immensely to the scenery on the layout and is really a great person that's a part of the community. They're a really nice person, but the puzzle aspect of operations, he doesn't quite get. But he's just a really nice guy. So people know that. People accept that. People like having the guy around. The guy's been around and has some stories, so it's really good to have around. So again, if you're worried that you're not going to get operations or don't understand it or will never pick up the ability to do it and won't get invited back, at the end of the day, just don't be an asshole. That's it. This was a picture of me during Island Ops. This was a 2-foot wide by 8-foot layout designed for operations. It is the Erie 28th Street car float and freight terminal. This was a fantastic layout to operate on. My brain hurt so much after operating on this layout because of how much thinking and whatnot I had to do. So please check out the comments that Split Rock and some of the other people have been putting in the chat. Thomas has a layout, Thomas Split Rock, and has had many operation sessions himself. So I definitely value what he has to say about operations. Basically, don't be afraid to get out there and try it out. Just at the end of the day, just don't be an asshole. From the city that never sleeps, farewell, model citizens.
It's all about humanity.